What if Deku had Cyclops' powers? Hey guys, so let's just dive right into this fanfiction because it's pretty straightforward. What if Deku had Cyclops' powers? And this is mainly based off of, well, X-Men 97 and also my love for Cyclops before I started watching, like, I grew up with the, X-Men movies and some of the other X-Men TV shows, but I mainly grew up with X-Men Evolutions, and I like how they portrayed Scott, but he was still kind of a, let's just say, kind of a meanish, stuck-up person, but that's just Scott's character. He's supposed to be the leader. He's like, the whole team is literally depending on him. He's literally the pillar for the team. I love Scott's character for that, for him being such a complex character and him having a whole big-ass backstory with his parents and his brothers and how his parents were from a different world. I don't even understand the lore behind his parents, but it's a pretty big part of his character that I'll get into more depth of, and how that will affect Izuku's character and how it's going to be a lot of similarities between comic book Scott and Izuku and Midoriya in this fanfiction. But let's just dive right into it. So let's start off with, well, Izuku and Midoriya. As Deku would be born to Inko Midoriya. Us not really knowing much about Izuku's father, but knowing that he was a part of a big-time hero team, but he soon vanished out of thin air. People thought he died, some people just thought he left. And this happened about, let's just say, a couple months after Izuku was born. Around, like, right when Deku was about to turn 1 year old. So Inko was on her own, but Inko was helped out by the other members of the hero team, basically keeping Inko on her feet and helping her raise Izuku. One of those, well, friends, or I guess hero team members, being a man called Charles Xavier. A man owning a school for gifted youngsters and, well, quirked individuals, just like how UA and other hero schools are. But him being a lot more of a prestigious school, mainly focusing and gearing towards kids with uncontrollable and sporadic abilities. Kind of abilities, kind of like Shigaraki's powers once he unlocks them. Basically powers that are world-destroying and could possibly kill thousands of millions of people if uncontrolled or trained or not kept under good supervision. So he's basically, his school is more for very strong and very, deadly powers. Enough of this universe's version of the, X Academy or whatever. So we get switched to Izuku. Years later, after Deku would have grown up. And this would be about Deku right around, well, in high school. As Izuku would have been on his way to school. Deku being not really in high school yet, but him being about, let's just say, 13, 12 years old at this time. As Deku's quirk would have never kicked in, as people would assume that he was quirkless. As people would just start bullying him, especially Bakugo. As Deku and Bakugo would have been going head to head with it over the years, but Deku being hard-headed and brass, and basically having the same personality of not being able to quit or give up like Scott, as he would have been pretty much going against Bakugo every chance he had if Bakugo ever came at him. Deku fighting as long as he could, even without being able to fight and having no quirk, him trying his best to win or at least give up a fight. As people would admire Deku for this and think he was a pretty strong kid, not strong, but like brave kid, but yet again he was quirkless, and it's something he can really do against someone that can literally make explosions out of thin air. As a lot of these kids, he wouldn't be as bullied as much, but the bullying would still be enough to basically push Deku down. But Deku keeping his guard up 24/7, still having the personality and the mentality of Scott Summers. Deku still being kind of, well, quirky, as he would be still nerdy and insecure and like to himself. But when he was ever threatened with some sort of fight or pretty much, allegation or like, fight or whatever, blah, 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 you know what I'm saying? Basically, it would push him into trying to fight back. But I'm kind of going overboard because Deku isn't exactly like Scott, Summers. He's still Izuku Midoriya. He's still kind of quirky, shy, and to himself. And if it was really even confronted to an actual straight-up fight, not just a scrabble, I feel like Deku would run away. Before a big event would have happened. Now, as Deku would have been going into the bathroom as his eyes would start to hurt profusely in the middle of a lecture or middle of a class talk, whatever. As he would have asked to go to the restroom, not even hearing what the teacher's going to say yes or no, as he would have ran out the restroom and would have ran out the classroom to the restroom, him rubbing his eyes profusely, trying to figure out what the hell's going on. As he would have looked up to the mirror, seeing his eyes start glowing red. As Deku would start to freak out, as Deku would have ran into the stall, rubbing his eyes and trying to figure out what the hell was going on. As Baku would have ran into the restroom, banging on Deku's stall, saying, "Hey, little nerd, what you doing up in there?" As he would have started banging on it, banging on it, and banging on it, and banging on it again and again and again and again and again. As eventually Deku would have started to get so pissed off, but his eyes hurting so bad, he started screaming, saying, "Get away, Bakugo! Get away, Kachan!" As his eyes started to literally flare up. As eventually Deku would have opened his eyes, a huge burst of red energy coming out of his sockets and blasting the stall door off his hinges, pushing Bakugo through the wall into a nearby classroom. As there would have been a lot of property damage. Now, what happened is, well, Deku would be taken to the hospital, as they would have, well, registered his quirk, saying that he had a quirk called, well, Octic Beam, as they would have classified it as Octic Beam, as it would have been a type of ability that would allow him to push out concussive forces of energy out of his eyes, and they would be uncontrollable, as Deku would have pretty much bandages around his eyes, as Deku would basically just be, for the last couple of days, him just being in the house alone, not knowing what to do because he can't see. He can't open his eyes or else he'll just blast the whole house to smithereens. As what happened is, well, Inko would have been sad for her child like any mother would, as she would have helped Izuku around the house, trying to get him accustomed to walking around the house without seeing anything. It's like he would have lived in this house his whole time, or his whole life, him being pretty fast to accommodate all the corners and shifting of the house. Since he was younger, he played around, basically. I feel like some kids, when I was younger, I just closed my eyes and pretended to be blind. I'm not gonna hold you. And I don't know why more kids that did this. They literally pretended to be blind, or either when it's pitch black in the night and you have to get something out of the kitchen and the lights, so you can't find the lights. You literally know where the lights are exactly, and you know exactly where all the furniture is and everything. You can just move around without even turning on the lights. So that's how I am. So Deku got pretty accommodated to moving around the house without seeing, but him still bumping into nearby chairs and doors and corners around the house. Eventually, he would have heard a knock at the door, him asking his mom, "Who is it?" As his mom would open the door, saying, "Charles," as Charles would have wheeled up into the room or into the house, saying that, "I have a gift for your son." "Hello, Zuku." As Zuku would have remembered the voice, saying, "Charles?" As he would have hugged Charles, saying, "It's nice to meet you. It's been a long time." As what would happen as well, in this universe, Charles would be a family friend, him being close friends with Izuku's father, as he would have told Izuku that I've heard about the whole school incident, as I took care of the property damage, as Inko, you don't have to save up to pay it, as Inko would have been relieved from this, as Charles would have asked him to come with him, as he asked, well, Inko as well, that I think I have something that could help Izuku control his ability a lot better, as they would have gone to, well, Charles Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, as they would have been introduced to Hank McCoy, or this universe's version of Hank McCoy, him having a mutation quirk that made him, well, the Beast, but also had his quirk about amplified up to be as strong and fast and agile as the Beast, but also him having a type of wild side, as he was ever not knocked out, but near death, or ever incredibly injured, his animal instincts would pop in, basically making him a literal killing machine. Worse than Wolverine, worse than I don't know, probably worse than Carnage. Literally being psychotic, monstrous behemoth of a character if he was ever pinned between a wall. So basically, he would have some sort of mental unleash quirk mixed with his mutation quirk. So what happened is, well, he would have introduced Izuku into the lab, into other characters, like this universe's version of Nightcrawler, and a version of Gambit. Version of, well, not Jubilee, but I guess it's the team's version of Jubilee. This character being, well, Yaoyorozu, as Momo would be close friends with Hank because Hank would be a part of the Momo Yaoyorozu family, him being a cousin or relative to Momo's father. So basically being related somehow, yeah, being related to Momo, as Momo would have came over to Charles' place multiple times when she had free time to see the tech and everything and see her cousin work. As what would happen is, well, she would have said hi to Deku, basically saying, "How are you?" As Deku would have said, "I'm doing good," as he would have just been kind of, cold to everybody since, well, he can't see. And doesn't want to go his whole life without not being able to see, without trying, or without, destroying everybody. So he basically says, so like I get knowing everybody and I only know their voice, so I'm not gonna hold you too much, but where's this thing you told me about on the way here? As Charles says yes, as he tells Hank to tell him. As Hank basically tells Deku to take out the bandages and to keep his eyes closed, please, as he stutters a little bit, as he puts on a type of, visor on Deku's face. As Deku opens his eyes, being told to open his eyes, but Hank taking him outside in front of a, tree, saying, "Open your eyes now." As Deku would have opened his eyes, and nothing would have popped out. As Deku would have been kind of excited and, happy by this. As he would have said, "I can see." As he would have said, it's kind of like a red tint, but it's cool. As, well, Hank said, "Yeah, I couldn't really make it in normal glasses. I had to use a carbon fiber absorbent, material." Well, it took me a long time to find this material, as it can absorb and keep in and contain kinetic energy. But it's only such a small amount of it in the world, only enough of it to make even something like a shield would be impossible, would take decades of mining to make. So making shades took a couple days, depending on the material I had already stocked up on. So he would have given Deku a second pair of shades that would just look like normal glasses. As Deku would have closed his eyes, taken off the visor and paying back, a normal version of the shades, him feeling a lot better with the shades on. As he looked at the visor, saying that the visor had a special button that would allow him to open it up so he can shoot out his optic beams, and also they would be, focused and also tuned so they wouldn't just explode out of Deku's eyes at all directions. So basically, they would be a lot more focused and pinpointed. And also, he can tweak up the pretty much, accuracy on them, being able to make them smaller, shorter, consistent beams, or bigger blast of energy, depending on how big or low he sets the visor before he presses the button. As Deku can also pretty much just take it off and blast people to smithereens if he just wants to, but he's not going to do that because he's still kind of scared of what happened. Now, what would happen is, Izuku would have gone into training immediately after, about a couple days later. Him being super excited that his quirk manifested, but him still being kind of mad or sad and scared that he can't control it. But him having this new visor and technology to keep himself in check, him being a lot more, let's just say, up to the task of being trained. As we would see that, somebody else in the school that had a similar power to Deku pretty much showed him the ropes. This character being a boy named Izu. As Izu basically would have been talking to Deku, saying that he has a similar power to him, as he's going to train him a little bit to control his powers, and basically asking him, "Do you want to become a hero or something? Because I need to know that first before I start telling you how to train with it." As Deku says yes, I always wanted to be a hero since my father was a big time hero in our old Golden Age hero team. The first X-Men, right? In the history books, before Charles Xavier's school became so popular, for, more chaotic powers like yours. It kind of interests me to learn more about the X-Men, the team my dad was fighting on. As basically the guy would have chuckled, saying, well, your father was really good. As he would have said, what? Well, you're saying age as me. What are you talking about? As he would have said, my powers allow me to absorb and redirect energy. Kind of like how your abilities are just allowing you to make raw energy out of your eyes. I can absorb it and redirect it in blasts of energy throughout any part of my body, including my eyes, but it hurts my eyes. So yeah, I don't really use that much. But he would have started to chuckle off about that comment. As he would have walked Deku through the school, saying that maybe when you're old enough, maybe you can enroll in here. Azuka says maybe, but I have my eye on UA. It's the biggest, most popular school in Japan. As Deku would have said, as Izzy would have said, yeah, but Charles Xavier School is very big. As he would have said that Charles Xavier School has about a couple locations in Japan, in America, and also one in Russia, but we don't talk about that one. It's a little bit under the siege of some sort of big time terrorist quirk user. Goes by the name of Magneto or something, but we don't really talk about much about him. As Deku says, oh yeah, I know him. He used to be on the team where my father was. He was one of the OG X-Men, right? The first class. As Izuku would have been told by Izzy that we don't talk about the members of the X-Men that's passed away or been corrupted. We don't talk much about your father though, but he was a really good X-Men and a good hero. Saved a lot of people's lives. As he would have said that I've been around for a long time and I met your father when I was about your age. As Deku is told that, well, Izu's powers allow him to age slowly, being able to absorb energy. So by the time Deku was about 50 or 40, Izu, if he absorbs enough energy, will probably be around the same age as him, or about in his 20s by the time Deku's in his 50s. So Izu goes on about how Izuku's powers are incredible, but also very dangerous, and he needs to know how to control them and use them in the right time, and use them in small quantities so he doesn't blow people's body parts off. As he would have gone on about Deku's abilities, as not heat vision, but with the right amount of movement and speed you put in your power or blast, you could give off enough kinetic energy to start a flame. But we don't really talk about that. So he goes on about how Deku's abilities allow him to pack a kinetic punch. A kinetic energy punch, as would allow him to push out a big blast of red energy or kinetic energy, being able to push his body to extremes, or his powers to extremes if he is able to control it. As he goes on about how powers are extraordinary if they're trained correctly though. As they start off training and we do a couple of a time gap, and Deku's about 15 at this time. Now, over the course of a couple of, years, after a few years, Deku's been training. Him not being at the peak level of Scott Summers', technique and skill, but him being pretty skillful enough so he can push his body to somewhat limits, or not limitless potential. As Deku's able to use his powers to propel himself backwards and forwards with his ability, being able to dampen falls or jumps from tall buildings with his kinetic energy blast, and being able to push doors and big giant boulders apart with his blast, and being able to focus it and be really handy and fast-handed with the visor. Him train with the visor a lot. As Deku's would also been able to train and also be very persistent when he uses his powers in full blast, like when he takes his shades off and just opens his eyes without the visor on, and basically just blast a whole forest apart, as he would have been training a lot in the forest after Izu would have gone off somewhere to the America version of, pretty much favorite school for gifted youngsters. So what happened is, well, Deku would be pretty skilled at this point. Him not being the best, but him being skilled enough to win against a fight and be able to use his kinetic energy to take down people like Bakugo and classmates near the same age as him and experience. As Deku would also fought against more agile characters, being able to do one-on-ones against characters like Nightcrawler, Beast, and also fighting against Izu, somebody with the same similar energy-based power or quirk as him. Deku also fighting against characters, or this universe's version of Colossus, him being able to use his powers to hold back tank characters like Colossus and characters that are somewhat immovable or like incredibly durable. What would happen is Deku would have pushed himself over the course of a few years. Now, at this point, Deku would have gotten ready and would have been able to say goodbye to his mom after the 9-month arc training and basically going and getting ready to go to entrance exams. Now, doing the whole event between Bakugo and Bakugo trying to fight Deku, that wouldn't happen because Deku would have kind of scared off Bakugo just a little bit, but Bakugo still having a grudge to settle, and him wanting to settle it once he finds Deku outside of school. He never finds Deku outside of school, but doing that, Deku would be getting picked up by Izu, so he would never come across the sludge villain. Meaning that in this continuity, Deku would have never basically, jumped in and would have stopped and tried to get save Kachan, getting the attention of All Might and yada yada yada, the usual. So what would happen is after that, we would see that Deku would be on his way to, more training right on the day before he goes to get the entry exams. Now, Deku getting told by Charles Xavier that he is destined for greatness and destined to be, the best, as he sees more potential in him than his father did. His father was the exceptional leader of the OG X-Men alongside Charles, before Charles became paralyzed. He says that you are just like your father, kind, pure of heart, and filled with courage unbelievable. You might not show it yet, but soon I know that you will become a great leader to whatever team you, lead in the future. I hope you have a good day for your entry exams. I hope you get in. As he wheels away from Deku. Deku goes back to training as he trains one last time with Ryu. Ryu starts to fight against him. As they start to battle it out, Ryu throwing a big energy blast towards Izuku. Izuku dodges it, shooting a blast of energy towards Ryu. Ryu redirecting it to Deku as Deku dodges it midway throughout, doing a somersault hand backflip away. As he starts to shoot other lasers around Ryu, disorientating Ryu and basically just overwhelming him with power as Ryu is absorbing all of it. As Ryu Berry is about to release it all on Deku, as Deku dodges it midway, basically letting Ryu release all his energy, making him tucker out and have no more energy left to absorb. Deku goes in for a physical blow and straight up just knocks out Ryu with a huge, straight up devastating shin kick dead to the forehead, knocking Ryu clean out. As Ryu's only backside, as he can't absorb kinetic energy, only, energy blast, so he has to keep a little bit of energy within him so he can absorb energy like energy blast and energy type quirks and stuff like plasma and also basically energy and like lightning and stuff like that. So Ryu's knocked out. Deku helps Ryu back up a couple hours later as Ryu says, you've finished your training and I think you're going to be very good. You're going to get a lot more training in with UA, but I feel like you're good and you'll become an exceptional hero one day if you get into UA. But even if you don't, you can always have a spot here and you can always go and enroll here and get your license that way. But we have a good day tomorrow, and I'll see you when I see you. As he escorts Deku off the campus, as he says goodbye to everybody one last time, and says I'll visit you guys soon, as he goes back home for the day, as he gets ready for tomorrow. Deku is ready for tomorrow, putting on a blue version of Deku's green jumpsuit. Deku going there to school. Now, in this continuity, I will be keeping Deku's hair green because I've been changing a lot of Deku's, defining qualities like his green eyes and his freckles and his green hair. So Deku will still have green hair in this continuity. So Deku basically walks into class, not walking to class, but he walks onto UA campus, getting really happy, and he's about to walk, but he trips. As Ochaku last minute saves him. As Deku gets back up and saying hi, and basically just stuttering a little bit, but him talking more into his psyche in his own head, as Deku's kind of really flustered. But Ochaku says it's okay as she starts to talk to him, and she says, I hope you do good, as she walks away. As Deku's really happy, as he walks behind her too. As we get switched to actually Momo. As Momo's doing the whole internship type, the patience exam. As she does pretty good flying colors, as she's, getting past pretty quickly. as we get switch to Izuku. As Izuku is basically doing his thing as he's starting to blast through these robots like nothing. As nothing really happened too much besides Deku just staying to himself, and Ida didn't walk up to Deku or anything like that, so everything in between that area never really changed. Deku did pass flying colors for the written exam since Deku was always an exceptional student growing up, but was still a nerd, so he was still picked on, and people assumed he had no quirk until it activated when Deku was about 12 years old. So Deku gets ready, and he basically is flying through the robots like nothing, using his kinetic energy to propel himself up into the ground and starting to blast characters all around the area, basically just taking on a plethora of pretty much bad guys with his kinetic energy blast or his optic beams. As he's starting to blast through these guys like nothing, eventually coming across a zero pointer. And Deku's about to get pretty much wilded up by the zero pointer, and him not really, being prepared to take out someone this big. As he's about to run off, but he hears Ochaku screaming. As Deku runs over towards Ochaku, as it's good to notice that Deku has been training with multiple different members of alternate versions of the X-Men, so Deku's physical body would have been pretty much toned, not to the point and muscularity of adult, peak Cyclops, but being somewhere near the same muscularity Izuku had in continuity, and pretty much being the same type of speed and strength of Deku without the quirk, plus a little bit more, internal speed, since he would have been pretty much doing a lot, and I mean a lot of running when it came to Beast training, as he would have been training Deku for more athletic movements in case his face was ever covered or in case his powers were ever mobilized. So Deku's agility and speed is like peak, like athlete type speed and agility. Deku's strength is probably like near football lineman type strength. Deku can basically tackle a full-grown man to the ground with minimal effort, and Deku can basically maybe with some adrenaline rush, maybe punch somebody's freaking jaw off. But basically, Deku starts to push himself to try to push the rebel off of Shaku, as he's a little bit moving too slow. As the zero point step on both of them, as Deku last second before another hero jumps in and saves them before they get crushed to death, Deku releases a huge blast of energy, knowing that his blast of energy with the visor might not help too much, because it will, dampen his powers and make it a lot more easier to control, but he needed more sporadic and havoc-like energy. As Deku rips off his glasses and releases a huge blast of energy, pretty much ripping the whole half of the zero pointer clean off. As Deku's optic beam, since last time he let it rip, was very stronger than last time. As Deku was kind of impressed by this appellation or his discovery of his newfound ability, but he basically quickly comes back to reality, pushing the rebel using the last bit of his strength and adrenaline rush to push the pretty much rebel off of Ochaku, saving her and pulling her underneath or out of the rubble. As Deku basically piggyback rides her to Recovery Girl, as Ochaku is pretty much treated with, and Deku already racked up a bunch of points, especially racking up a lot of attention from the spectators, and also All Might seeing that huge blast of energy from that kid. It was exceptional. As Deku goes back home after the ding 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 goes off, as Deku gets enough weight that he got in, and he got the highest score in the entry exams. Since Deku in this continuity saved a lot more people and also took down a lot more robots with his optic beams. As Deku gets really happy by this revelation, telling his mom all about it, that he got in, and also calling Ryu that he got in as well. As he gets a call from Momo. As Momo and Deku would have basically been hanging out near, pretty much Charles Xavier's School for Gifted a lot, as they would come across each other's paths, actually exchanging numbers once for some studying. Deku was studying for his class, and he asked Momo to help him out, since Momo was pretty much Beast's right-hand man, because Beast was like incredibly smart, and Momo kind of got a little bit of that from Beast. So basically, she just helped Deku out some study work, and nothing came out of that, and they just, exchanged notes. And Deku was basically tutored by her and also by Beast. So that's why Deku's probably as smart as he is in continuity right now in this fan fiction. But also, let's talk about the point that Deku never even tried once the specific game to her. So basically, throughout this whole situation, Momo was the first one that spit some game, and basically telling Izuku that is he free tomorrow. And Deku's being kind of confused, saying, "Nah, I'm doing some training." As Momo said, "Oh, well, text me when you are." As Deku's kind of confused by this, but he's just happy. As he also tells her that he got in, and she's super excited, but also tells him that she got in as well. So Deku and her are kind of really happy by this. Now, Deku and them do find time, because in this continuity, but like a week before UA starts up and everybody's taken to their classes and stuff. So Deku basically goes to like a date throughout that week with Momo as they go to an arcade and a bunch of other things and walking around Japan, as nothing really came from like a kiss or a hug, but they did give a lot of looks to each other, especially Momo, as Momo's kind of pushing the date mainly throughout the whole time. As Deku's, whole like, Scott's his game hasn't truly been, amplified on Izuku just yet. But yeah. But so what happened is Deku just starts to talk to her a little bit, as they basically just exchange looks. They hug actually for the night, and they say goodbye. As Momo keeps on texting Deku, and Deku keeps on texting her. As Deku doesn't really get the gist yet, but he soon will. As what happened as well, eventually they would go to UA. As Deku get picked up by Momo, actually, Momo said he needed a ride, as Deku would have got it in the car. As they would have arrived into UA, them getting pumped, or especially Deku getting pumped, to be here. As Deku walks into class on A with Momo, as everybody's super happy by this. As Deku walks in, and he's passed by Ochaku. As Ochaku says, "Hey, it's you." As I was kind of confused and kind of, pissed off by this girl that just randomly walked up to the guy she's talking to or trying to talk to. As Deku basically talks to her, saying, "Hey, it's been a long time. Are you okay?" As she says, "Yeah," saying that I really wanted to thank you for saving me back there. They would have started to talk a little bit, and Momo being a little bit, jealous, but also us seeing a little bit of flirtatious vibes coming off of Ochaku. As Ochaku would have kind of actually openly tried to flirt with Izuku. Just small flirting that wouldn't be super noticeable, but Ochaku definitely made it noticeable, so Momo would know. As they would have a little bit of a piss off rivalry towards each other over Izuku. But nothing too much to a point where it become like a cat fight. Just them having a little bit of a cold heart towards each other. But not too much to a point where they would let each other die or anything. No, nothing like that. So what happened as well, Izuku walks away as he sits down and Momo sits down as they're just chilling. As Deku soonly looks up and he sees Bakugo as they stare at each other, and Bakugo just pretty much clicks or like smacks his lips and sits down, giving a death glare towards Izuku. As Izuku just pretty much looks it off or just pretty much wafts it off. As we can switch to when Aizawa would have woken up, telling the class that it took them 7 minutes to quiet down, and basically saying and talking to Momo and Ochaku that your banter won't be allowed here in my class. I already know what type of gist this is. But he basically tells everybody that you may have passed the written exam, or the entry exam, but you haven't passed my exams. I want to make sure you're good enough for my class, for my top 1% of the school. As he tells everybody to get ready as they get into their gym uniforms and getting ready to go. As Deku would have some scars around his body from some times where Beast went out of control and kind of scratched like a whole Wolverine type claw on the back of Deku and stuff like that. But nothing too much. Deku just having slight little scars on his body. As people would have noticed this as he would have taken out his clothes to get ready and get in his gym clothes. Especially Kirishima saying, "Bro, that's so manly." Pause. But basically, Deku would have gotten ready, and everybody would have been told to get ready. As Deku would have grabbed the ball first, since he got the highest exam score, as Deku would have thrown the ball up and would have blasted with the kinetic energy, pushing it and making it go really fast, out of the atmosphere type fast. As Deku get a pretty good score. As I was seeing the creativity with Deku's ability. As they would have told to be long jump, Deku getting a pretty good long jump since Deku's already pretty physically capable without using his power. As Deku does the race, Deku getting a pretty good score as he would have ran backwards, using and jumping up mid-air and releasing his blast, pushing himself backwards, making himself fly past everybody, getting about second to first place. Now, other grip test strike, Deku getting a pretty good score since he can really use his kinetic energy blast or like his optic beam blast. to really do much to enhance his strength and that capability. As Deku gets a pretty good score overall, and he's pretty excited by this. As Deku gets about second place. Or about second place. As Deku and everybody get ready to go home after they're handed their syllabus, as well, Aizawa sees potential in Deku, as Deku's quirk doesn't allow him to do too much on the rest of his body, as he has to rely more on using his powers creatively, and he can't really use too much physical type of powers on himself. But what happened is, well, Deku would have been walking home, as Deku would have been really happy by this revelation. Eventually, Deku walking, but stopping midway as he would have heard some sort of noise. Deku looking back behind him and hearing a man say, well, it's been a long time since I've seen a summers around these parts. As Deku looks by, as Deku Summers is Deku's legal name in this continuity. So Deku Izuku Summers. So that's his actual name. Deku Izuku Summers. So his last name is Summers. So Izuku Summers. Or Midoriya Summers. So I guess it's Midoriya Izuku Summers? Izuku Midoriya? No, Izuku. Yeah, Izuku Midoriya. I'm tripping. Izuku Midoriya Summers is Deku's legal name in this continuity. So what would happen is, well, Deku being kind of confused, saying, what are you talking about? As the man would have said, you don't really know your lineage, Your powers are extraordinary. Your father, your brother, as you don't even know who he is, but you're great friends with him, aren't you? Deku confused, saying, what are you talking about? As he basically stops and shoots an energy blast for Izuku. As Izuku dodges it midway, being pushed off his rock or pushed off his balance, falling on his back. Him looking back up and taking his visor and getting ready to blast, but him seeing nobody. His glasses, as Deku would be having his shades on after school. So Deku would be kind of confused, looking around, as he would have just walked back home. Now, basically for the visor, whole type of school only lets Deku have the visor on when it's doing quirk, training day, or anything of the sorts like that. So basically, it's just reserved for those type of things and hero work and stuff like that. So Deku is normally in his shades outside of school or outside of combat training. So yeah, I'm gonna walk back home being kind of thrown off by this. So I'm gonna leave it off here, guys. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. And as always, guys, have a blessed day. Deuces.